Had the best comment so far. Thank you. Next speaker is Mr. Kurt Furnow. Apologize for that last name. Excuse me, but
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you guys being here, and I don't blame you being here this time of year, especially on a Friday. Hopefully you have Saturday and this weekend. You can enjoy some of the things we have up here. Maybe take a ride up to Sunrise and take the ski lift, and it goes up at the top. They have hamburgers and hot dogs you can eat there, and just have a beautiful, beautiful view. And I want to compliment you also on the job that's being done. No longer do I have to run down to the valley and make sure I come back when it's daylight so I don't have a blowout hitting some big potholes. And it's really, really nice. We have a very heavily traveled Highway 260 in this town. 40 years ago, it was the most heavily traveled rural highway in the state. I believe the Super Walmart here is the first one built in the state, right here in Show Low. So we have an awful lot of traffic, people coming from New Mexico, so we really appreciate the good roads. One of the business I was in was a small trucking business. And as you travel into town, and this is something that really concerns me because it's almost been crushed a few times. In from Payson on Highway 260, where you meet Highway 60 with the Circle K and that Victorian building on the two corners. They've done a beautiful job in striping. They've taken a long time striping that road, but they've neglected to put the hash marks for the left-hand turn lane on the outside where you're driving in from Highway 260 onto 60. Continually, they don't know where to pull in, especially the long trucks. I've had to jam on my brakes a couple times, even with people pulling shorter trailers, but particularly the long 53-foot trailers. They'll make a short turn and it completely cuts off the inner automobile. It needs to be striped. It really is a serious problem. Somebody's going to get hurt there. I've got over 3 million miles under my belt from driving, and I understand how this corner is really, really important. And I think it would be advisable having a left-hand turn lane on Highway 60, Deuce of Clubs, that is going west, to have that moved back a little bit for the short corners. So again, welcome to our city. We have a wonderful one here. Back in the 80s, this was one of the best kept secrets, but now Show Low's growing so fast. And I don't blame you for being here at all. Welcome and come again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that's all the requests to speak we have for in person. I now look to the ones who are online. And a reminder, when I call your name, please raise your hand through the WebEx, or if you're on the phone through *3, and the WebEx host will unmute your line or let you unmute your line. Our first online speaker is Ms. Liz Boudreau. Ms. Boudreau, please raise your hand. Ms. Boudreau, please raise your hand.
Your line is unmuted, Ms. Boudreau.
Ms. Boudreau, if you're speaking, we cannot hear you.
We may be having some audio issues with Ms. Boudreau. I don't see her mic working.
Okay, why don't we come back and try that again? Our next speaker is Ms. Lucinda Andrini. Ms. Andrini, please raise your hand.
You're unmuted at this time.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Lucinda Andriani. I serve as the Deputy County Manager and Flood Control District Administrator for Coconino County. And we too appreciate a long and very positive relationship with ADOT and have worked very closely over many years with the board and certainly Mr. Thompson, and he served as a supervisor for many years. So thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to speak today to a request for funding to the AZ SMART program that we have submitted in working with our MetroPlan organization here in the Flagstaff area. This relates to the disaster that's affecting our area. I'm sure many of you are aware that we sustained two wildfires last year, destroyed 31 homes, and then subsequently created very severe and repetitive post-wildfire flooding. We experienced 45 major flood events in this area last year. Which caused 9 full closures to Highway 89 that you're probably aware runs north from Flagstaff into Utah, Colorado. Very importantly, the Navajo Nation, Hopi tribal area, and several other tribal areas. We had 9 full closures, numerous partial closures throughout the summer last year. It was just a devastating impact to not only the local residents. We have about 1,000 homes that are impacted, but given the highway impacts, the impacts go much, much beyond impacts to people's daily lives, accessing medical care, accessing services, accessing employment, our economy. This is obviously a crucial corridor for access to the Grand Canyon and many of the other national parks and monuments that we have in northern Arizona and the Page area. And so we are working very closely with ADOT. We met with the state director, Toth, recently and discussed this situation, and it's resulted in this request for funding. Overall, what we're trying to accomplish is to secure a PROTECT grant from federal DOT that could allow us to expand a facility that was constructed post Schultz fire back in 2015, as well as a crossing that has been impacted by the flooding. We are investing, the Flood Control District.
Excuse me, Ms. Andriani, your time is up, please. Did you
Well,
finish
I
your
will
comment?
just say we're investing over with federal and district funds about 125 million. And again, we would really appreciate the partnership to have a positive impact on this critical state highway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. Geronimo Vasquez. Mr. Vasquez, please raise your hand.
Everyone, or good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please make your comments.
Thank you. Mr. Chair and members of the State Transportation Board. My name is Geronimo Vasquez, and I serve on the Coconino County Board of Supervisors, District 2, and as the Vice Chair of MetroPlan, the Metropolitan Planning Organization in the Greater Region, Flagstaff Region. I'm here to seek your approval for the 3.7 million AZ Smart Fund request for the PROTECT grant application for matching funds for the Highway 89 flood mitigation project. Last year, the tunnel and pipe fires burned almost 50,000 acres in the Coconino National Forest and caused 45 major flooding events that devastated local communities and shut down parts of Highway 89 with full or partial closures 13 times. I'd like to share 2 stories from community members about their experiences with post-wildfire flooding along Highway 89. As you will hear, this is truly a life, death, and livelihood issue for the communities and travelers along the highway. From the first community member, Every time it rains on the burn scar above Government Tank, we have a devastating flow of black sludge and debris crashing into our property. We have been hit 7 times and fear losing our barn. The flow keeps getting bigger. After the Schultz fire, we lost fence lines. I purchased a flood policy and they are not covering anything because we were able to keep floodwater out of the house. My adult son tried to cut a fence line before the fence collapsed and went into the black flow, and he almost drowned. This has become a very dangerous situation and is probably 5 times worse than the Schultz fire aftermath. It's running through our property anywhere between 5 and 8 feet deep. Another community member speaks of the impact of the highway shutting down on his family. When the highway shuts down, there is not an alternative way for us to get between our home and town, and I have been on the wrong end of the highway several times, having to wait for hours to get home. Our largest problem is daycare. When the rains start, we have to pick up our daughter early or she could be stranded away from us, which is very frightening. There was an occasion when the road closed before we were able to get to her, and a friend had to pick her up and keep her on the south side of the closure until the highway reopened. Without our friend, I don't know what we would have done. Highway 89 connects tribal lands to Flagstaff, and tribal communities suffered repeated elimination of access to jobs, school, healthcare, and commerce. When the highway closes, oversized vehicle traffic poses hazards on tribal roads and can cause erosion of the shoulder and destruction of guardrails, strain on bridges, and Navajo Department of Transportation safety staff of 4 to deal with the detour issues on tribal roads. This includes speeding adjacent to Hopi villages and places a strain on tribal law enforcement. Highway 89 closures affect tourism to notable national parks like the Grand Canyon, Lake Powell, and Horseshoe Bend, which contribute to Arizona's economy. A match award from the AZ Smart Fund will enable Coconino County to seek funding for the 3rd portion of an interconnected system of on-forest watershed restoration, in-neighborhood flood mitigation, and thirdly,
Excuse me,
a
Mr.
highway
Vasquez, but that is your 3 minutes. Could you please complete your comments?
a highway drainage project for the Government Tank and Copeland Basin. This project is being proposed in the Protect Grant. On behalf of Coconino County and MetroPlan, I strongly support this Smart Fund request to fund the Protect match of Highway 89 flood mitigation that has several multiple benefits for people
Thank you,
across
Mr.
Arizona.
Vasquez.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ms. Sandra Tavel. Ms. Tavel, please raise your hand.
You are now unmuted.
Mr. Chair and members of the State Transportation Board, my name is Sandra Tavel and I'm a transportation planner with MetroPlan, the Metropolitan Planning Organization in the Greater Flagstaff region. I am here to advocate on behalf of Coconino County's $3.7 million Arizona Smart Fund request for matching funds for the Protect Grant application for Highway 89 flood mitigation. This highway drainage project for the Government Tank culverts and Copeland Basin is a crucial aspect of a large interconnected system designed to achieve long-term resilience for flood mitigation on Highway 89, which is an ADOT facility. This project has partners who are deeply invested, such as the U.S. Forest Service at $42.3 million for on-forest watershed restoration, Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS, which is part of the United States Department of Agriculture at $49.5 million for in-neighborhood flood mitigation, and the Department of Forestry and Fire Management, an Arizona state agency, has contributed $12.1 million, and Coconino County is contributing $13.2 million of its own funds toward the project for a total project value of $117.2 million. Coconino County is seeking federal Protect funding and in turn Arizona Smart Funds for the match for highway drainage improvements between Cinder Lake Landfill Road and Copeland Lane along Highway 89. All these pieces must work together to resolve flooding issues which shut down the highway 13 times last year alone. The number of partners and scale of their investment demonstrates the earnestness and belief for the need for this project and commitment to get it done. The highway drainage project at Government Tank and Copeland Basin seeks to fund 2 new box culverts, 2 concrete channels, and upsizing the Copeland Basin upstream of the highway, all designed to withstand a 25-year rainfall event, or 2 inches in 45 minutes. Currently, the highway floods with a 2-year rainfall event. As you heard from Supervisor Vasquez's accounts from 2 community members, flooding along the Highway 89 corridor causes destruction of property and livelihoods for adjacent residents and travelers, safety risks, and even death. A 12-year-old girl died in the floods in 2022 after the pipeline fire. Detours that last up to 2 hours that interrupt access to commerce, recreation, education, healthcare, and jobs, and cause road damage and staff strain on tribal lands when oversized vehicles take detours on tribal roads and bridges. Additionally, when road damage occurs because of these detours on tribal lands, funding the repairs has jurisdictional barriers. Highway 89 is the only corridor to Colorado, Utah, Nevada, and northern Arizona. Highway 89 is a state-owned facility, and the county is working closely with ADOT to address flooding. In addition to ADOT partnership, the county has meaningful and robust investment from other federal and state agencies. Lastly, Highway 89 is an important corridor that enables the economy in northern as well as greater Arizona. On behalf of MetroPlan, we'd like to thank the State Board for your consideration.
Our next speaker is Mr. Key Allen Begay. Mr. Begay, please raise your hand.
I do not have any raised hands at the moment.
Okay, we'll come back. Our next speaker is Ms. Jennifer Thompson. Ms. Thompson, please raise your hand.
Ms. Thompson, you are unmuted.
Great. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead and make your comments.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman Knight and members of the board. I'm Jennifer Thompson, and I'm the Controller and Town Site Utilities Manager for the Freeport-McMoran Mine in Baghdad. This is located in Yavapai County. US 93 and State Route 97 are used by several hundred private vehicles and commercial freight trucks daily. I want to start off by thanking ADOT for the progress in widening the US 93 near Wickenburg. This is important progress in widening a very dangerous road that continues to experience fatalities, serious injuries, and extensive personal and business interruptions. Unfortunately, we were not awarded the RAISE grant for the State Route 97 reconstruction. So we are working to submit our application for the rural grant due in August. This will provide safer access to and from our mine site for the hundreds of commercial and private vehicles that use it every day. This will also facilitate better access and readiness for first responders who also use this road to reach emergencies on US 93. As you know, I've talked about before, we're looking into we're doing a feasibility study on a potential expansion for the Baghdad operations to provide copper as we work towards the net zero emissions energy transition plan. This potential expansion would double the current production, bringing us to 400 trucks per day for copper and commercial freight, and add 600 employees plus 150 contractors, all using State Route 97. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board for the opportunity to speak, and many thanks to Director Toth and the ADOT team for all the hard work you do. And we will continue to partner with ADOT as we move forward with this next grant submission. Wishing you all a happy weekend and cool weather up there in Show Low. Wish I was there. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. Kevin Beastie. Mr. Beastie, please raise your hand.
Mr. Beastie, your line is now unmuted. If you are speaking, we are unable to hear you at this time.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please make your comments.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Toth. My name is Kevin Beastie, and I'm here today on behalf of Freeport-McMoran Baghdad, and would like to give you a brief update on our partnership with ADOT to improve SR 97. As you may recall, the FY 2023 budget, the legislature appropriated $10 million to ADOT from the general fund in FY 2024 to make improvements to State Route 97 near Baghdad. The language stipulated that this appropriation will revert back to the general fund on June 30th, 2025, if ADOT does not secure federal funding on or before June 30th of 2025. In addition to the $10 million appropriation, Freeport has committed a minimum of $10 million towards the necessary improvements. And as Ms. Thompson just briefed you, Yavapai County submitted a raise grant earlier this year, but unfortunately it was not successful. But we would like to thank Roger McCormick and his team at Yavapai County Public Works and Yavapai County for submitting the grant application and their continued support for this important project. So moving forward, in an effort not to lose the state and private investment that is already on the table, we'll continue working with Yavapai County and the ADOT team to pursue another round of grant opportunities in the recently announced MPDG grant. As mentioned by Ms. Thompson, that submission deadline is August 21st, so we will plan on providing you an update at the next board meeting. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this morning. And I would like to close by publicly thanking all the ADOT personnel that, regardless of the temperature or the weather conditions, they're out on our roadways ensuring people have a safe and reliable transportation system. So let's do our part by driving responsibly and respectfully. Thank you and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Kevin, for your comments.
Our next speaker is Mr. Travis Pruitt. Mr. Pruitt, please raise your hand.
Mr. Pruitt, your line is now unmuted.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, Mr. Pruitt, please make your comments.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning, and good morning to the members of the board also. I wanted to take a moment just to express our support for a couple of items that are on your agenda this morning, and then also provide some additional information on them. First item I wanted to mention was item number 3D. This is the paving project scheduled for Bullhead City, Kingman Highway 68. This is a critical project. That highway links to several important businesses that are along that line there. One of them being Dot Foods, which is a huge food distributor. So it's important that that highway remains safe and useful to keep that distributor here. It's a huge employer for the community, as well as several other businesses along that connect through that highway. The other piece of it is Bullhead City is starting to grow and be a significant economic center for the region. So we are connecting, that highway connects us to people that are in the Golden Valley area as well as Kingman. So it's important that those people can reach us, come in, do shopping and things like that, and help to strengthen and build the economic vitality throughout the community. One, we just wanted to thank you for your consideration of that project this morning. Looks like it came in under bid, so that was good. And we appreciate your support and consideration for that project. The other project that's being considered is it's listed as Silver Creek Road, again in Bullhead City. Now, this is a center median project and lighting project. Also important, it's right on our Bullhead City Parkway. So we have two important roadways, Highway 95 and the Bullhead City Parkway. That parkway, again, is important to a lot of businesses. One, again, the Dot Foods food distributor, which is a huge employer in our community. But also, that is kind of our emergency exit route, and it alleviates a lot of traffic flow that packs up on Highway 95. So again, an important roadway, and we appreciate your consideration for this project. So I just wanted to express our support, and then also hopefully it'll pass with no problem, but I am available for any questions that anyone may have. So thank you again. I appreciate the time this morning.
Thank you, Travis.
So, Mr. Chairman, I do want to go back to the two speakers to see if we were able to make a connection with them. Ms. Liz Boudreau. Boudreau, are you there? Please raise your hand.
Ms. Boudreau, if you hit *6 on your phone, you should be able to unmute.
Ms. Boudreau, if you're speaking, we cannot hear you.
Does not look like she is unmuted yet.
Thanks,
Ms.
Randy.
Boudreau,
How about, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say once again, if you want to unmute, hit *6, but we can come back.
And Mr. Key Allen Begay. Mr. Begay, are you there? Please raise your hand.
I do not see Mr. Begay in the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. We seem to have difficulty with the audio connection for Ms. Boudreau, but we cannot make that connection. That is all the requests to speak.
Thank you, Floyd. We'll now move on to item number 1, which is the director's report. Yeah, Jessica.
Can we come back to them if they're available, become available to speak? Keelan Begay and the other individual as well?
Sure, if they come back.
Mr. Chairman, you can open up call to the audience at any time if you choose to.
Sure.
I would recommend, since it has been almost quite a bit, try to get through a lot of the agenda, then maybe we can try towards the end of the meeting.
Exactly. But if they do come back on so that we know they're there, just gotta let us know so we can put them on at the end.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Director?
Morning. Thank you to Sholo, Pine Top Lakeside, and the county for the hospitality this morning. We are happy to be in Sholo this morning. I was fortunate enough to be able to be up here most of the week, visiting with our staff and enjoying the community. I'll get started by sharing a few ADOT updates. First, if I can have the next slide, I want to give you a look at the pavement repair projects currently underway. From the map, you can see that the pavement repairs are taking place in critical areas around the state. The sections shown in green represent the projects that are either currently underway right now or are scheduled to start throughout this summer. The areas in orange show the projects that are scheduled for this current fiscal year. As I mentioned at last month's meeting, we have a great website up and running. It's at azdot.gov/paving repairs. That site actually has an interactive map, an interactive version of this map. So visitors to the site can actually hone in on project schedules and detailed information about the repair projects that you see up here today. I want to again give a big thanks to the State Transportation Board for approving these projects, to the amazing staff that we have that works so quickly to get these projects moving, and to the industry for being so responsive to all these projects being released, along with those that were already in the 5-year program. Next, I'd like to share a few safety-related updates. As you all are very well aware, we're right in the middle of Arizona's wildfire season. Just earlier this month, we had to close US 60 in both directions north of Globe because of a brush fire. Our crews are often asked to provide much-needed assistance during a wildfire incident. They respond and coordinate with emergency services and other state and local and federal agencies, especially when road closures are necessary. I'm very proud of their efforts, but obviously hope that there would rather be no fires. As a public safety announcement, in order to prevent fires, we do encourage motorists to use extra care to reduce the chance that vehicles ignite a fire. To prevent sparks, we remind people to make sure that nothing is hanging underneath their vehicle or dragging on the pavement. And if you pull off the road, your vehicle is hot. If you're in the grass, it can create a fire from the bottom of the vehicle. Which also brings me to the next big safety topic this time of the year, our extreme heat. Our crews are out there almost every day in the summer, and we do take precautions in order to protect them with these rising temperature. And obviously that includes a focus on water, shade, and also rest. And I do want to give a shout out to all of our crews for being safe and protecting themselves from the heat as they work so diligently on the projects throughout the state. On another note of safety, we're always on the lookout for ways to get the public involved. One very successful campaign has been our annual safety message contest, and I'm happy to report that the contest is back for its 7th year. Right now, we're accepting entries for creative and engaging traffic safety messages that will be displayed on the overhead message boards. Last year, we received more than 3,000 entries. So you can go on to our website, azdot.gov/slime contest to enter your creative messages. And then starting on August 9th, you can log back in and come to the site to vote for your favorite message. We're very excited to have that happening once again this year. Quickly, I want to let you know that our teams are preparing notices to inform the public of the upcoming 45-day comment period on the long-range transportation plan, which you heard about at the last board meeting. The draft plan is scheduled to be released for comment on Monday, July 24th. And finally, I want to share a bit of good news for travelers on Interstate 17. The Sunset Point rest area is open again. Upgrades to the restrooms along with the water and the septic system are complete, and it's really enhanced the rest area's capacity and accessibility. So today there is no legislative report. The legislature is in recess, but we will keep you updated on any changes. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. No last minute items to report then.
No, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize, but I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Randy, could you move Mr. Searle from a participant to a panelist? I see he is also logged in as a participant. Let's see if that helps with our connection with Mr. Searle.
Thank you.
Randy, are you able to find his name there, Richard Searle?
Yep, I'm doing it right now.
Thank you.
He does not show up in the attendees list. Is he on his telephone?
I don't know. I thought I looked at the participant list and I saw Richard Searle.
If he was there, he might have dropped off.
He said he was trying multiple ways to get on, so.
I see his list.
Okay,
On the
I found him
attendee
now.
list, I see him, Richard Searle.
Yes, he should not. He should be a panelist now.
Mr. Searle, I just want to check if you have audio now. Are you able to speak to us? You hear us? Randy, if you could work with Mr. Searle to see if you can try to make that audio work. There's a way he can unmute himself now.
Yes, I will reach out to him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I apologize, but if you want to move on, you can.
Pardon?
I apologize for interrupting, but if you want to go to the next item.
Well, we'll now move on to item 2, the district report. Mr. Wilson's up with our district report.
Morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to Show Low. For me, it seems like it's really warm, but I know for a lot of people, it's not. It's really not. So we really want to welcome you here, and I'd like to thank the city of Show Low for hosting. So they had a really nice thing this morning. So it's greatly appreciated. So go ahead and start. So go ahead. Next slide. So you've heard a lot today about our urgent repairs. And I just wanted to kind of cover it real briefly. This slide is showing how Mother Nature really just kind of swept us off the roads in some places. So up on the mountain, there, particularly, in 191 South Alpine, we had a lot of digging to get those back open. Up 260 from Horseshoe Lake all the way over the top of the mountain, and on 273, the picture there with the trucks in it. Those trucks, that's when we got back to them the day before. So we have 2 trucks that are running together so that if one gets stuck, the other one can pull it out. But sometimes they're overwhelmed at the 80-mile-an-hour winds and blowing snow. So the next slide, please, is you've seen a lot of these pictures over time and just some of the road damage here in Pine Top and on 60 on I-40. So the city of Pine Top, or the Lakeside, it was about 30 lane miles. It looked like that. I apologize for starting saying lane miles, because a lane mile is a 12-foot strip of pavement a mile long. So I apologize for saying that. Go ahead, next slide. So anyhow, the urgent repairs team, and they've been really appreciated by the local communities. So one thing that I'd really like to take time is to thank the local communities for all the support that we've had from them. So whenever we had the pictures that you saw before of all the potholes and all those things, they don't just call ADOT. The local communities up here, they get hundreds and hundreds of phone calls and interaction with their constituents that are our constituents also, because people don't always know exactly where to go. So, and they really, the local communities really helped support everything that we did and came together behind us. So I really want to thank them for all of their support. Next slide. So the first project we have here is US 60 right here in Show Low, and it's US 60 and 260, both the main routes through town. And Sunland Asphalt and Construction is the contractor. It's a $16.6 million project that is primarily a pavement preservation project with a lot of ADA repairs that go with it, and reconstructing the intersection at Show Low Lake and Cub Lake Roads off of 260. So this project is really way overdue. So the contractor's out of time. We're starting our third year on this project, but they have a plan together, and they are getting to the end, and there'll be a seal coat coming here in the next couple of weeks, and the permanent ground in striping will be shortly after that. So once that cures out, so it is moving forward. So next slide. The next project is on US 191 between Chinley and Black Mountain Wash in that Chinley to Mini Farm section. So Fan Contracting is the contractor of it. It's a $13.8 million project. So this project really is for shoulder widening. It's really 3 projects that are HSIP, highway safety improvement projects, that are kind of lumped into one bigger project. And it's really justified by all the crashes that we were having up there to add the 5-foot shoulder. So Fan really, they went in last year and they completed about 90% of the work in about 50% of the time. So they knocked out everything except for the seating and the chip seal, and the seating's underway right now, and the chip seal will be in a couple of weeks, and this project will be wrapped up here pretty quickly. So next slide. So this project is the intersection of 264 and IR4 is on the Hopi lands. It is being constructed by Show Low Construction, and it's a $775,000 project, which is going to construct this walking path and lighting on the walking path, as well as to light up an intersection that's right there. So it is also highway safety improvement funded, and one of the things about this area is we don't get a lot of accident data. So we're working with the tribe right now to get more through our partnership, but it takes that data to obtain the highway safety improvement funds. So that's a pretty neat project for that community. Next slide, please. So this next slide is on 264 from the approximately the Coconino Navajo County line to BIA 503. So this is a 1-inch bond wearing course. It's a life extension project. So this pavement is pretty rough, but it was a pretty sound pavement. And so the 1-inch bearing course, we'll get a lot more years out of that road. So. And it's also being constructed by Sunland Asphalt, and it was about $4.25 million. So next slide, please. So the next project is on I-40 from Joseph City to Perkins Valley. So it's being constructed by F&F Construction at $10.7 million. And it's a pavement preservation project. And this is another one of those projects. It wasn't an urgent repair, but it really was an urgent repair because it was in pretty rough shape by the time that this project happened. So next slide, please. All right, this project is on State Route 87 at Tisto Wash. So it's a full bridge replacement project. It's a $6.9 million project being constructed by SEMA Construction. So right now they're at the stage where they really just poured the pier cap in the last abutment. So they're be setting girders here in a couple of weeks, and in about 3 months we'll be driving on it, hopefully. So next slide, please. This project is kind of interesting because it's a Central Federal Lands project. It's on 261. It's from Eager to Crescent Lake. It's right through the National Forest. It serves a lot of high recreation area up on the National Forest. It goes up to Big Lake for the people that like to go up around Big Lake. So, and it's a $13.35 million project. It's being constructed by Hatch Construction, but it is being managed through the Central Federal Lands. So we're actually not constructing that ourselves. Central Federal Lands is constructing that as part of their Federal Lands Access Program. It's a pretty neat project for us. Slide, please. So this is these projects kind of throughout the district are state line item funded projects. So this slide shows some fog coats that we're doing all around the district from Burnside Junction to Ganado, on 264, on State Route 87 from Tisto Wash to Snake Butte, on US 180, the Beaver Dam Wash to Ellsworth Road, and State Route 77, Cottonwood Wash to 14 Mile Hill, and US 60, the Salt River Canyon to Carrizo. So we're going to be fog coating a total of about 138 lane miles for this project. So these seal coats will really help us withstand some more of these winter conditions. So, and the next slide. So these chip seal projects are also FY24 state line item funded projects. So we have 3 of those, all of 163 from Cayena all the way to the Utah state line, on US 191 starting at I-40 going north to milepost 385, and on 277, which from Paper Mill Road into Snowflake itself. And we will seal coat another 105 miles of chip seal with this project. So really, that's all I've got. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions from anybody on any board members? I did get a text from Mr. Searle. He says he's on WebEx now. He can see the meeting. I hope.
Mr. Searle, if you're there, let's check your audio real quick. Could you please unmute yourself? Check your audio.
How about that? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Success.
Fantastic.
Now, this has been an experience, I'll say, if nothing else.
I'm sorry about that, but you come in just the perfect time to check Mr. Wilson, see if you got any questions for him.
No questions. Thank you. I'm going to go back on mute.
No, don't. Oh, shoot. I don't want to have a problem.
Yes, Member Thompson.
Yes, I do appreciate, all the work you have been doing out there, because those projects are visible anywhere you go, whichever way, there's always projects going. And as the Hopi tribe representative Mike said, that's very visible. It's noticeable that something good is happening there. So thank you very much, Ed.
Any other questions for Ed?
I do have a question.
Yes,
Mr.
Jenny.
Wilson, so these emergency repairs that the director spoke of earlier, these are all done with in-house forces, with the district forces, or are they contracted out? Or
So the urgent projects, the map that you saw up there, all of those projects are contracted out. Some of the projects that Ed covered, specifically the fog coat and the chip seal, those are done by either our maintenance staff or through contracted methods.
Any other questions? That's not Ed. Thank you. Thank you for your report. And now we will move on to the consent agenda, item number 3. Does any member want any of the items removed for separate consideration or discussion? Then I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay.
I have a motion by Member Howard and a second by Member Maxwell or Member Thompson. Member Thompson. It came from over there, so I couldn't tell who it was. Member Thompson, just have a second for Member Thompson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And Floyd, would you poll the virtual members?
Yes, sir. Board Member Searle,
Aye.
And Mr. Chairman, Board Member Daniels is not logged in yet, so she is
Okay.
not available.
Thank you. We'll move on to the financial report, agenda item 4 with Christine.
Good morning, board members. I sincerely regret that I cannot be up there with you and out of the valley. It is a warm experience down here.
A bit
So-
cooler here than there, yes.
Yes. So, Mr. Maxwell, hopefully I will be able to provide you an exciting report, even more exciting than the snowplow pictures, the road damage pictures, and the elk that Mr. Wilson was able to provide you. I am sure a chart will help keep things exciting. If we can go to the first slide, I would appreciate it. Very good. Okay, so reporting out on the Highway User Revenue Fund, we have closed out the year, and this is the final report for FY23. And if you look there, you'll see at and you squint at June, you will see 0%. I will tell you what that represents is a 0% variance from forecast. We have some very giddy economists right now because they only had an $800,000 variation on their forecasts from actuals this year. So I've not got a lot to report other than a lot of happiness at this point. Gas tax revenues just a little above forecast. And what's interesting is about 0.9% above last year, so it was pretty flat. Diesel, we ran below forecast, and VLT is closed about 4.5% last year, above last year. So that's how things got balanced off. If we go to the next slide, please. This shows you the individual categories, and you can, for the month of June, you can see that we were a little below forecast in that final month. Next slide. So for the Regional Area Road Fund, we've got these reflect the month of year to date through May. We've got one more month to go to finalize Regional Area Road Fund. We don't get that data until a month later. It always lags behind, but as you can see, we're within forecast range, and year to date, we've collected about $660 million worth of revenues. That runs about 8.8% above last year at this time. We can go to the next slide. So this will give you the individual categories for May. For the actual month, for the individual month, we were above last year by 1.2%, but a little bit, but 5.5% behind our forecast. So if we can go to the next slide. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes the financial report portion of the agenda items, but you'll see on agenda item, we now have agenda item 5 and 6 that I'm ready to move on to if there aren't any questions.
Yeah. Are there any questions from any board member on what Christine has covered so far? Christine, we're ready to proceed with item 5.
Thank you. So I think it was about 2 months ago, I mentioned to the board that I would be coming to the board and requesting your approval to conduct a new bond issue. So what we've been working with our financial advisors, RBC Capital Markets, Kurt Freund and Tom Carlson, and identified an opportunity to pay off some higher interest rate HERF bonds and replace them with lower interest rate debt. So this is very much like when you refinance your home and you are able to get a lower interest rate, and that results in you having lower mortgage payments. So we'll accomplish this in 3 steps. So you'll see on, Mr. Chair, that this is broken down into item 5 and item 6 on the agenda. But as I tell relay what's going on, I'm going to tell the story all right now, and then we'll break it down to the agenda items. So we'll accomplish this refunding in 3 steps. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are seeking the approval to prepay, to defease some HERF bonds that we issued back in 2015. So we're going to pay these bonds off, and it will cost us about $310 million. And we will use state highway funds to pay or defease these bonds. We're currently paying a 5% interest rate on these bonds. And we will be able to pay them off and reissue new bonds at a lower interest rate. The second step is that we will offer to buy back some HERF bonds. When we buy back bonds, it's known as a tender. And those bonds, these are bonds that we issued in 2020. In the current market, the bonds are worth less than their face value. And if we offer investors a slight premium, slightly higher price, they might be willing to sell some of those back. Those first 2 items are agenda items number 5, both associated with agenda items number 5. The third step is that we will issue new, lower cost bonds to replace the cash that we used to pay off the 2015 bonds and to pay for the HERF 2020 bonds that we buy back from investors. So like I said, we're currently paying 5% interest on the 2015 bonds. We estimate that in issuing the new bonds, the interest cost on those new bonds will be approximately 2.71%. The decreased interest costs are estimated to result in net present value savings of approximately $31 million associated with paying off the 2015 bonds, refinancing the 2015 bonds, and 3.4 million net present value savings from buying back bonds from the 2020 issue, for total savings of about $34 million. So if the board approves, the next steps would be that Chairman Knight and Director Toth will sign the defeasance document as well that allows the department to prepay the 2015 bonds, and you will sign a bond resolution that allows the department to issue the new bonds. We would then subsequently, in the next couple of weeks, like the week of the 31st, we would meet with rating agencies. Currently we have, in case you're interested, we have bond ratings. We expect those ratings to be AA+ for S&P, AA1 for Moody's. And so we would go through those rating calls the week of the 31st. We would anticipate selling the bonds in late August, early September, and closing on the issue not long after the sale. And Chairman Knight, that is when you and the director would get writer's cramp from signing a plethora of documents. So what we are seeking is your approval to proceed with your agenda item number 5, the prepayment of outstanding HERF bonds. And I'm not sure how this is best handled, Floyd, but we will also be seeking adoption of the authorizing resolution associated with agenda item number 6. And I would be happy to take any questions.
Okay. Sorry, I was just going to say that it is 2 motions, and when you're ready for the motions, I have the motions written out, Christine, based upon the language that we got, and so I could be ready to read those. But I think, as Christine said, let's first see if there are any questions.
Yes, are there any questions from the board for Christine? Mr. Maxwell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Christine, thanks. And yeah, your slides were fascinating. I'll tell you, just don't get the your economists used to nailing the number every time, or we're going to start to come to expect it, and they could be in trouble. So I do have a couple of questions. It's the bond authorizations for 310 million, and based on what you've described, the intent is to issue all of those bonds because we believe we'll be able to use all those to either pay down the interest rate on the 2015 bonds or buy back those 2020 bonds. So if we authorize the 310, you anticipate using all of it?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Maxwell, yes, that is correct.
Okay. On that, how much of the breakdown of that 310 million is going to go to attaining the lower interest rate on the 2015 bonds versus the buying back on the 2020 bonds?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Maxwell, that's a good question. It will be highly dependent upon, so the 310, let me start there. The 310 represents exclusively the amount of the 2015 bonds to defease those 2015, the replenishment of the state highway fund that will be used to defease the 2015 bonds. With regards to the tender, where we are going to offer to ask investors if they would like to sell their bonds back to us. For that, we have it's an estimate. It's all based on estimates, and it's based on estimates because most of the variable that is most in question is how many investors will actually want to sell their bonds. So we will adjust the new issuance, the 2023 issuance, based on what the receptivity we get by investors to sell their bonds. Does that help?
It does, Christine. I guess the question would be, so the 310 that you're getting authorization for could be more if we get everybody wants to sell back their 2020s bonds. So we could end up issuing more 2023 bonds than the 310 million?
Yes, I believe, yes, technically, yes. That is correct. So we will, so right now, I think on the 2020 bonds we are estimating that about 30% of the investors, the estimates that I provided you are based on 30% of the investors purchasing, being willing to sell their bonds, excuse me.
And the final question so obviously the maturity dates and the payoff dates for us change on those bonds as we reissue them. How much further out will the 2023 bonds go than either the maturity date on the 2015 or the payoff on the 2020, really on the 2015 ones? How much longer will we have those bonds in place is my question.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Maxwell, the maturity dates will be aligned with the present maturity dates of 2015, and they will align with the maturity dates on the 2020s. We are not extending these maturities.
Perfect. I appreciate that answer, and thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all the questions I got.
Any other questions? Yes,
Christine, in the resolution, there are several bonds that have been issued. 2015 refers to 1980 all the way through 2019. What is the total bond indebtedness before any of this happens? All of those together that we have.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Mack, we have outstanding bonds of, I believe it's around $1.9 billion in HERF bonds.
That would be, would that include the payoff and the initiation of these new bonds?
Essentially, yes, because we will be paying some bonds off, and we will be reissuing in amounts of the same amount. So we will not be issuing additional debt.
Some of the new bonds, as I think I read that could be 6%. Does that apply to any of these monies?
No, the 6% is an outside interest rate. The actual rate that we're anticipating is about 2.7%. And that's associated with the term of these bonds, that are being paid off, the term that Mr. Maxwell was referring to, it's about 6 years. So we're in the early, it's essentially short-term debt. Think of it that way, I think is the easiest way to put it.
And some of these bonds were due during the pandemic. Were we current? I'm the new kid on the block, so I don't know, but were we current with the payments? They look like they're all 30-day payments over the 12 months.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Meck, if we weren't current, Director Toth would be throwing me out of the door. Yes, sir, we have always been prompt and timely with our debt service payments.
Okay, that my question, maybe I didn't clarify that. It was during the pandemic. Did we, or was the board ADOT current during the pandemic on all the bonds payments?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Meck, yes.
That's reassuring. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Searle? Hearing nothing.
Did you ask for me, Gary?
No. Rich, just whether Rich, you had any questions or not, Richard?
No questions, and not at this time.
Okay, thank you. In that case.
So, Mr. Chairman, then we are asking for a motion to approve the adoption of authorizing resolution and repayment of outstanding HERF bonds as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Mr. Maxwell and a second from Board Member Howard. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Would you poll?
Mr. Searle, how is your vote?
Aye.
And Ms. Daniels is still absent, so the motion did carry, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 6, and I believe you have a motion.
Now, the second motion, as Christine had mentioned, the second motion, which completes all 3 actions necessary as she's presented today, this is a motion to approve the adoption of authorizing resolution for HERF 2023 bonds as presented.
I have a motion from Board Member Mack.
Okay.
And a second from Board Member Thompson to approve as stated. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Hearing none. Would you poll, Mr. Searle?
Mr. Searle, and your vote, sir?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, again, that's 6 ayes, and Ms. Daniels is absent. Motion carries.
Great, thank you. We'll now move on, and that's all the motions we have for the bonds, correctly?
Mr. Chairman, that completes the financial report unless you have more questions for Christine.
Does any board member have any other questions for Christine at this time? Thank you, Christine. You did a great job.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Now we'll move on to agenda item number 7 with Paul Patanay for the Multimodal Planning Division report. So Paul, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, I think you will see that Mr. Patanay unfortunately got selected for jury duty, and he's in the middle of trial. He is observing, but Mr. Clem Legaki will be presenting the MPT report, PPAC report, and ZZ Smart.
Great, because I could see Paul on the screen, so I didn't know whether he was going to do it virtually or not. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm not as good looking as Paul, and I will do my very best. But he is there in case he wants to add anything, improve on what I'm presenting here today. So real quickly on the Multimodal Planning Division report, if we go to the next slide, please. We have 4 items, the tribal transportation update as we normally do. Looking at the P2P planning to programming process and where we're at with that right now. And then State Route 88, the Apache Trail project, the update on that one, and then some information on bridge and pavement preservation briefly. Slide, please. So we're really excited about the Tribal Transportation Safety and Injury Prevention Summit that is coming up on August 9th and 10th. That will be in Phoenix at the Desert Willow Conference Center. I think you've received invitations to that. If you need more information on that, just let me know and we'll get that back out to you, okay? You can see that there are other hosts there involved, Federal Highway Administration, NHTSA, and other state agencies, the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, and some important tribal organizations there with us. I'm happy to say that we've got 13 tribes already registered for that event. That's great. And then also, it's exciting that we have I'll just say at this time, confirmed for keynote addresses, appearances, Governor Katie Hobbs and Orlando Teller, who you know is a former board member as well, but is Assistant Secretary for Tribal Government Affairs right now. At this time, they're confirmed to present. Next, please. More tribal transportation updates, first looking at some statewide activity. The electric vehicle plan. As you know, for 2022, we completed the first EV plan successfully, and now we're working on updating that one to a 2023 plan update, and that has an August 1st deadline. Staff is working really hard on that. One thing in that plan that is provided amongst many other things is recommendations for possible charging locations on these 7 additional corridors that you see here. Change here is that previously only interstate highways were eligible to apply the NEVI funding, but now they've added just the national highway system, and that's important because it doesn't go beyond that to the other state highways that are also important, but we're not at that step at this time. So these are all national highway system routes. We used a rating factor internally to look at which ones were important, the best to nominate, things like access to important federal offices, attractions, forests and such, traffic levels, underserved areas. And each of these routes, more than 50% of each of these routes serves underserved areas. In most cases, over 80%. So those are some of the factors we used. Then I would note, we are doing a lot of tribal outreach on this. And there was a meeting held July 12th with representation there from Gila River Indian Community, Hualapai Tribe, and Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community. And then an additional meeting July 19th as a virtual public meeting. And we've gained a lot of valuable input from that. Next, please. More statewide activity was mentioned earlier by Ed Wilson that we're working on data real hard with the tribes. And this is another one, traffic count. So our MPD staff is working on improving our traffic count program and our cooperation with the tribes on that. So that will continue. And there's a meeting on July 28th on that in Phoenix to work on that. And now the southern region, the State Route 86 Wildlife Crossing project is ongoing. We've reported briefly on that before, but we have some new meetings where on April 8th, District Council recommendation that the district communities be involved. So that is ongoing. And we have Don Sneed, our Southern Region Tribal Planner, is helping to coordinate that. So that'll be important and looking forward to that. Next, please. Here's our outline of our planning to programming process. You see, it's pretty much year-round activity now. Once we're done with one program, we start with the next. So we've got an earlier start now to make things flow better. You can see starting, even as early as February and through May. And you see each of the steps here. If we can go next, I'll show you where we're at right now. We've completed the project nominations coming through from district engineers, our project managers, and anything that we received, from the board, our tribal partners, COGS, Metropolitan Planning Organizations as well. And then in the April, May time period, we did something a little new, although it's been done before in the past. We did district tours. So our districts were really extremely helpful in welcoming us in and driving with us on the roads to get a really firsthand look and focusing on things that likely are to be recommended as projects for P2P. So we got some really expert thoughts on that, and our pavement staff also came along with us on that. So that was really, really special there. And then project nominations in June from the technical groups. So what's left is we're currently working on ranking the projects. So that hard work is going on right now. You saw Jason James here last month. He's also key on this P2P process and the ranking and driving that with our consultant. So that is ongoing. We have district workshops moved up to September now. You may have already received invitations to those. If you have not, you will soon. You have got those. We hope that you'll join us. You have been helpful in those in the past, so we're looking forward to that. And then October is when we finalize the rankings and get those over to our programming staff, Lisa Danka and her team, and also to our planning level scoping team to start working out the scope, schedule, and budget. It's a little better to get things in the program better from the start. That's kind of what we're doing there. So next. State Route 88 Apache Trail, you see the graphic that we've shown before, Fish Creek Hill overlook rest area to Apache Lake Marina Road. Study area is a 7-mile segment. That's shown there in red. Next, please. So again, we have a 7-mile segment that we're conducting this study between those points that I mentioned earlier. And so that's milepost 222 to 229. That's remaining closed to traffic now, of course, because of the extensive damage that came from wildfire and the large storm events that we had. So the purpose of the study is to determine the feasibility of reopening State Route 88 to vehicles, identifying potential improvements and the cost to improve the areas, resilience, to improve resilience in the roadway environment, and then, considering future storm events, how we can prepare. So the design concept report is ongoing to look at the potential improvements and to conduct the environmental review, which is required and important there on the U.S. Forest Service lands that are managed by the Tonto National Forest. And, again, it's a historic and scenic road as well, and National Forest Scenic Byway. So that's all ongoing. And then the deliverables are that design concept report and the environmental overview. We're looking at 5 alternatives. Don't have a lot of information on that right now, but we do have some alternatives that we're looking at. Public meeting coming up August 16th from 5:30 to 7:30 at Apache Junction Multi-Generational Center there on Idaho Road. The schedule has at this point in time looking at completion in the fall of 2023. So that's what I have on that particular subject. And then last slide, if you can advance. This is a slide that we've shown you before in the context of our 5-year program presentation. In the bottom there, highlighted in yellow, to bring the system roadways into good condition would cost about $5.8 billion by our estimates. And the reason we bring this up is I think at the last board meeting, board member Howard had some thoughts about that and wanted to see the figures. We're not sure if that's the exact number you were looking for, but if it is, there it is again with that slide, so you have it for your reference. Okay. Thank you very much. And then are there any questions on what I've presented here so far?
Any questions from the board? Member Searle?
No questions.
Yes, Member Howard.
I'm excited to see the summit that we have coming up. We talk about the communities that work together in the small municipalities to get things done. And just since I've joined the board, I've seen much progress in the way with the tribes and ADOT to get things done. And I think we're moving closer. So many projects are driven by statistics. And if we don't have the right information on both sides, sometimes we can't justify doing some of the work that needs to be done. So it's a great thing. And I definitely noticed the progress just over the past few months. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Any,
Chairman.
yes,
Floyd, was there a reason why the hard copies was not provided to us? I always like to refer to that when I'm way out there on the rural area.
So, Mr. Chairman, Board Member Thompson, the board secretary failed to make your copy for that item.
Clem, can you get a?
Oh, that's me. I did it. I must have missed it.
Yes.
I was printing out all the presentations. I apologize. It looks as if I missed that one. It was not done on purpose. It was done by the board secretary's fatal error in competency. So I tell you, Sherry left and it's gone to hell.
that's probably why we're looking for a new secretary.
I'm looking more for the secretary after this meeting. I think the director's about had it.
Had my extra copy just in case.
Thank you, thank you.
We'll make sure we provide that to you all.
Paul's on the line. I wanted to ask if he had any.
Like paper, I like the
You're
elect.
the one who asked it. Mr. Thompson always asks for a hard copy of everything that we do, and that's what I bring. Everybody else is asking
I
electronic.
don't know where he stores it all.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to let you know, Member Daniels is going to be unable to join us today. Connectivity problems make it impossible for her really to join and be an active participant in the discussion or the votes. So she's not going to join us.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if there are no more questions, I have one more 1-minute thing that I would like to do.
Fine. It's yours.
So today is July 21st. It's the 26-year anniversary of one of our employees, and that's Lynn Sugiyama. He's an honorable, just dedicated employee. When he comes to work in the morning, it's all about public service. And you don't see him a lot. Maybe you saw him in some previous times and years. But a lot of the behind the scenes stuff you see, particularly on the PPAC and board material stuff that you see today, and lots of other work in that group. He does a ton there, and he's just really a dedicated guy. 26 years for him today. 26 years. So I want to recognize Lynn. He might be online. Lynn, if you're there, thank you very much.
Congratulations if he is. We appreciate his work.
Thank you. I'm here for the next item when you're ready, sir.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay, so we have the PPAC recommendations. And it's a short list today, which makes up maybe just a little bit for last time. So we have only 2 project modifications, 1 new project and 1 airport project. And so if the 2 project modifications are items 8A and 8B, we'd like to ask your approval of those 2 items.
Are there any questions on those 2 items from the board? Mr. Searle, have any questions?
None, thank you.
In that case, is there a motion to approve the PPAC project modifications, items 8A and 8B as presented?
Motion.
I have a motion from Board Member Mack. And a second from Board Member Thompson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, could I get Mr.
Oh, and I'm sorry.
Mr. Searle? No, yes, sir. Mr. Searle, could you have please provide your vote on PPAC items A and B?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. The motion carries.
Sorry, Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we could move to the next slide that shows 8C, thank you. So there's only 1 new project, that is item 8C. It is a local project, and we'd ask your approval of item 8C.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion for, if there is no questions or discussion from the board, I have a motion from Board Member Maxwell and a second from Board Member Howard to approve item 8C as presented. Would you please That being said, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Would you poll Mr. Searle?
Board Member Searle.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have one more, which is the airport project. That is item 8D. Apologies to Baghdad. It's Baghdad without the H. And if we ask your approval of item 8D, please.
Is there any discussion or questions from the board? In that case, I will entertain a motion to approve Airport Development Program item 8D as presented.
Moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Board Member Maxwell, a second from Board Member Thompson for, to approve item 8D. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Please poll Board Member Searle.
Mr. Searle. You're both.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr.
I'll move on to agenda item number 9. You're going to be standing there a while. Paul's going to owe you.
Maybe not. We'll see. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Board members, we can go to the next slide, please. So just to refresh our memories, the eligible uses again are listed here on the slide as we normally show. Up to 50% reimbursement of grant development and submission costs, limited to those smaller counties and smaller cities you see in the list there. Also, the funds can be used to match a federal grant for surface transportation, and also reimbursement for design and other engineering services is provided there as well for eligible projects. And who's eligible right now, and I'll get to more on this, is ADOT and cities and towns and counties, except for those two listed there as we provided before. There's more information on that I'll have shortly in another slide. If we can go to the next. So today we have just one application before the board, and it deals with the Protect Grant Program, which again deals with resilience related to weather events, natural disasters, et cetera, primarily. So you see the information there. That notice of federal opportunity there, notice of funding opportunity, I should say, has been released, and it's August 18th that closes. So we have some action there now. If we move to the next slide, please. So there's been some legislative action. So we want to summarize that for you briefly. So there were two bills that were passed, Senate Bill 1722, which appropriated another $12.5 million through the SMART Fund to go into the fiscal year 2024 budget. But of course, it does not expire. That added $2.5 million to each of the 5 pots that we have. That became effective July 1st, so we have that money at this point. So that is effective, and that's official. You'll see that in the table that we're updating here shortly. Then we had Senate Bill 1735, which made a number of changes, but is not yet in effect. So what this did is previously we had the statute defining, or currently I should say, defining eligible applicants by excluding those that are partially or entirely located in an urbanized area of a large county, which in this case is Maricopa County. And so what they did there is amend that law to change it to say, now those excluded are those which are partially or entirely. Before it was they had to be entirely. Now it's partially and entirely. So that's been changed. It's both now. So what that does is effectively, exclude the rest of those communities in Maricopa County, in addition to the county itself. So when that takes place, that will change the, when that becomes effective, will change the eligibilities. there was another minor technical correction. So since the legislature is still out there and hasn't adjourned yet, if they come back in late July, we have to update the date that I have on the slide there, which is September 13th. It'll be, late October at the soonest that this will become effective. So it's the general effective date, which is the 91st day after the end of the sine die adjournment of the legislature. So when that happens, we'll find out. There'll probably be a few celebrations amongst our legislative staff. And so that will come up then.
I've got one question on that. I may have misheard you, but did you say that when they changed it partially or entirely located, it was originally entirely and they added the partially?
Correct. I may have had that reversed. Yes, that's correct.
So if it was entirely located in Maricopa County, it was not eligible, but they added the partially to that statement.
Mr. Chairman, that's really close. It goes to the urbanized area. So some of the cities and towns were partially located in the urbanized area, but not entirely. Not entirely. Like that list that we showed in the earlier slide, those were the ones.
What are the boundaries of the urbanized area?
It's Mr. Chairman, it is confusing for all of us that work with these multiple jurisdictions in the county. There's a lot of county islands. There's also some public lands. There are things that are rivers may not be considered as well. So in those cases, there are gaps that that are located there.
So they get this straight for future reference. The city of Phoenix is not entirely located in the urbanized area. It's just partially located in the urbanized area. I find
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. They have
difficult to fathom that the city of Phoenix is not entirely in the urbanized area, but if that's the case, that's the case.
That's Mr. Chairman. That's the way it is because it goes to, densities of population and portions of the city are outside the urbanized areas.
Okay.
Chairman, we can provide a map of the urbanized areas and send that.
Okay, probably when we have to finally make a decision on that, it would be handy to have that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This is Bob. I wanted to clarify it as well, and I would appreciate seeing the map. Even before it comes back, obviously that's, we've got a smart fund application out there from Phoenix that we're considering. So I think that would be extremely helpful. And so when you mentioned, say it's Maricopa County, it's because as I understand it, the reason it doesn't impact Pima County cities is because the urbanized area of Pima County is not in excess of 1 million people. The county is, but the urbanized area is not. So it's really that 1 million people is referencing the urbanized area population.
There is actually South Tucson is affected.
So it's not 1 million in the urbanized area. It's in a county with
a population
of 1 million. So it does impact Pima County as well, not just Maricopa County.
That is correct.
I'm not saying that is a good thing because, it'd be better for the cities down there for not to be part of it, but it is clarification and there's South Tucson is the only one that's currently on the list that's impacted.
Yes, in addition to the county itself.
So will the partial impact the city of Tucson then as well? Pretty sure it will because there's several, there may even be another one. Marana may come down far enough into the urbanized area. I'm not sure, but if we could get a list of the cities that will change, because there's maybe some opportunities for smart fund applications from FEMA that the cities or the municipalities may not even be aware they will no longer be eligible 90 days past sine die.
Like,
Mr. Chairman.
to the map and the list of the cities that are ineligible.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cities and counties.
We'll communicate that well.
There's no further questions. Go ahead and continue.
Will do. Okay, so that's it for the legislation. If we can go to the next slide that has the map, there we go. So this is the one application we have today. You heard Deputy County Manager Andriani, Supervisor Vasquez, and Sandra Tavel from Metro Plan. I'll talk about this one earlier in the comments. It's the State Route 89 flood mitigation. The request is for match in the amount of $3,705,842 for their Protect grant. And the work includes the watershed restoration, neighborhood flood mitigation, as you see there, highway drainage improvement, and upsizing existing detention facilities. We heard quite a bit of detail on that earlier. So the numbers are there, and again, they will intend to be a direct recipient if awarded this Protect funding.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I have one additional point that I was asked to make. When the application from Coconino County was submitted, Governor Hobbs did write a personal letter signed by her to add to the application, putting the Arizona support behind the application as well. So that was not in the original packet, and I was asked to convey that to the board.
Thank you.
The next slide, please.
Yeah, next.
So in summary there, we've done all of our statutory checks. It's all eligible applicant, eligible projects. DPAC did do the approval to forward here. The request is for the match in the amount that you see. And there were no other requests there. And of course, the board's options will be to approve, modify, deny, or request more information. Next slide, please. This is an enhanced table that you had requested. So I'll go through this not too quickly so that we can catch the details that changed. Across the top of the table are the 5 eligible applicants. You see again, ADOT, the municipalities under 10,000 population, those over 10,000 population, and then counties under 100,000 and counties over 100,000. The revenues there, as you see in that top band, have grown. And so it's now 12.5 total appropriation. And along with the interest, you see those amounts are over 12,700,000 in each category to start. So, but some things have happened then. Since the last time we met, you recall at the last meeting, there were applications approved in the amount of $3 million for Bullhead City in AZ Smart Funds, and see if I get this right. I think it's these $277,008 was for Gilbert, which was a partial award at that time. But they were not successful in getting their grants. And since those were match awards, that money gets returned to that pot of the large cities. Okay, so keep that in mind. If we go down to the highlighted in yellow area, you'll see now then the available for awards in each category. And for the larger cities, that number is back up to $5.8 million now. And you mentioned earlier the pending requests is the city of Phoenix is there for that 3.4. So you can see what the balances are in determining your decision at some point in the future. As you come in with new larger cities, you'll know what those numbers are. And then for today, we're focusing on the county application. And so you see the amount there available for award is 11.4 million approximately. And the request today is for that $3,705,842. And so you see the total there. And if you approve this application, you will still remain about 7.8 million in that large county's pot. So that's the summary there. I don't know if there are any questions.
Any questions
on the table?
Board?
Mr. Chairman, looks like Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Thompson.
Chairman, if you're ready to take action on this.
Yes.
I'd like to request the support of the board. I've been part of the Metro Plan for several years, and there's been a lot of efforts working together with the Native American tribes, with the city, with the county, and of course with us as well. So the funding is there. And so the justification, and as you heard earlier from some of the speakers, you know, that this is definitely a need to get it done because this is a kind of like an isolated roads going, you know, up north. So with that, I'd like to move that we approve the amount requested by Metro Plan.
I have a motion. I would like to say that in this particular case, and we have to take each one of them individually, I think this is a very good application for the Smart Fund. It's going to bring a lot of outside dollars, federal dollars into the state that without the matching funds, it might not happen. I think it's a good thing. And it has my support as well. So I have a motion from Board Member Thompson. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I need to go back. On his motion, he said Metro Plan, but the applicant is Coconino County. So may I read the motion first?
Yeah, read the motion, or I'll read the motion. Either one, doesn't matter.
Okay. We're asking for a motion to approve the Arizona Smart Fund application from Coconino County in the amount requested as presented to the board.
Yes, that is my motion.
And I have a motion to that effect from Member Thompson. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Member Mack. All those in favor? Yes.
Question.
Yes.
Discussion. So we've established Maricopa County is ineligible for these funds. Pima County is ineligible for these funds. So we've got two county buckets. And I don't know the answer, so I'm going to ask the question, how many of the counties fit in the greater than 100,000 population and how many counties fit in the less than $100,000 population, 100,000 population?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Special, off the top of my head, I do not know that. So if you've got the county population numbers, we can provide that.
I just looked up Show Low and Pine Top, and I'll get to that comment after this. But I think it's important to know. I'm not saying it's going to change my vote. I'm supportive of this as well. But as we go forward, I mean, if Coconino was the only one in that category, then they really, if they come to projects with this, they've probably got smooth sailing. But that means we've got all the other counties in the other category. It would be good to know. And
I can say,
Chairman,
he is more than 100,000.
Mr.
Chairman,
Mr. Searle, yes, sir, Mr. Searle, please make your comment.
yes, to answer Ted's question, there's at least 5 or 6 counties that are over the 100,000 mark.
And Mr. Chairman, we can,
Yeah, it would be nice to have, but for by the next meeting, or by the time we have to approve another out of that pot, it'd be nice to have that information. I know Yuma County, that's my county. I know it's got more than it's about 200,000. So.
And Mr. Chair, it's a thought process, and we're about to approve a third of the funding available to a single county. And again, like I said, I personally am supportive of this usage of the money because of the amount of federal dollars, but it's good for us to be able to balance how much we're going to get in response to the match amount we support, but it's also good to know. And right now we haven't seen, I'll give Coconino County and the Flagstaff area a lot of credit. They've been very good at trying to take advantage, to leverage these smart fund accounts. But I think, to my point in the conversation we had this morning, it really is important for the other counties to realize this money's here, especially the smaller ones, which might need some help in the grants. They may not have as big a staff. What we don't want is 6 years from now, this money's still sitting there and nobody's taking it back, been able to leverage it, I should say.
And I too agree. I think that when we do consider each one of these, as we have here, we need to consider the additional funds that are coming into the projects, what this is a match for. And actually, even though the 3.7 million is about a third of the pot, in this case, it's a very small percentage of the total dollars that for the project. So I think that's one of the things we have to consider, one of the parameters that we have to consider going forward, so that that's what makes each one of these individual awards kind of separate. Consider each one on their own merits. And in this particular one, it's much needed, and it is going to bring in a lot of federal dollars to the state.
Chairman, if I could,
Yes.
thanks to my amazing staff that are back at the office. Cochise, Coconino, Mojave, Navajo, Yavapai, Yuma, and Pinal County are all over 100,000.
And I think, as I did mention, and as you mentioned, I think that we, as one of the parameters when we're considering these awards, we have to look at how many federal dollars or how many outside dollars these matches are bringing into the state. And when we consider it and make our decision. Did you have a comment, Mr.?
This is actually, yeah, it's a request from the county. All I'm saying about Metro Plan is there's this group that's working together very closely to make these kind of projects happen. So with that, I do appreciate your thought, and I definitely, having been part of them and talking with them over the several weeks, I do appreciate your thought again that, you support. Let's move forward with this. I really appreciate it.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the board? The only comment I would have in addition would be that since we're going to have to consider each one of these applications on its own merit, so I don't really want this to set a precedence that we have to follow. It just in this particular instance, the outside dollars, and it's a small match compared to the outside dollars that it brings in, and that weighs heavily on my consideration. So in that case, we have a motion from Board Member Thompson and a second from Board Member Mack. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Would you poll Board Member Searle?
Mr. Searle, your vote, please.
I vote aye.
Thank you, sir. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Chair?
Yes,
Before we move on, could I just have a second to talk about this
absolutely.
thing? This chart, I appreciate this chart being up here because it shows a lot. And with today at the meeting we had with the communities beforehand, we talked a lot about the challenges of the Smart Fund apps. A lot of these communities have a single point of single individual that works all their DOT issues and their transportation issues. And so it's not as easy for them to put together an application. That's why you're seeing a lot of the larger communities because they've got deeper staffs. Interesting enough, based on the Google's information, Show Low would be in the muni greater than 10,000 category, which is the biggest category where there's a lot of challenges in there. So, but Pine Top Lakeside would still be under the 10,000 muni side of it. So the other thing I had not thought about prior, ADOT obviously has our own ability in there, and so far we have not leveraged that either. So at some point, I'd like us to consider and talk about what we're looking at for possible projects out there that we could get some leverage the smart funds for the match if appropriate, because those things are there. But I would absolutely encourage the counties, especially the counties under 100,000, because that full bucket is still available. The majority of the municipalities under 10,000, that full bucket's available, or most of that bucket's available too. So this is a great opportunity to do what you heard so many of us talk about today, and that is leverage outside dollars. Infrastructure funding is very difficult to attain. So anytime we can get somebody from outside our region that wants to put money into our state, that is something I think we should continue to pursue. So I'd encourage all those folks in those categories to start taking a look. And if they need help, they can reach out to ADOT and see if ADOT can supply them some help. For the record, on the application, there's 29 different federal grants. So it's, a lot of times we hear about the RAISE and the Protect and the big ones that everybody knows about, but there's a lot of federal grants in here you can use, including the 30th category, which is other. So if there's a federal grant of that may not be on this, that doesn't prevent you from applying for these SMART funds to help you pursue that grant as well. Thank you for the time, Mr. Chair.
You bet. And I would like to add that, as you mentioned, Sholo's in the pot that's fairly depleted.
Yes.
But you have to remember this. You can partner with your county. And if the pot for the city is not contain enough, if it finally becomes depleted, reach out to the county, your county supervisors, and in most cases, they're going to be willing to partner with the community to keep that money in the county. That's the way Yuma County looks at it, because I've talked to their board of supervisors, and they're more than willing to work with the cities and towns within Yuma County where the funds for those particular cities or counties have been depleted. So don't be afraid to reach out to your county and partner with the county to get the SMART funds that you might need. They would have to fill out the application, but it's all in the county. So you can make that work as well.
I've, particularly those in the rural remote areas, I don't know how much information we're getting out there. Most of the time, when I visit those remote areas, they have very little knowledge about it. So much of it, I have to talk to the county officials that they need to work with those tribes. And that's one way I'm making an effort on my part, and I'm sure the cities and the all and they want to be part of this. And like you both said, that we need to let them know more about, what our discussion is about here and how we're like to move forward with those, and the money out there.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Yes, go ahead.
Chairman, just to follow up on that, I might add, we did, blast out in the beginning a lot of information. If it would be helpful, Lisa Dank has got all this stuff moving, and we'd be happy to, maybe it'd be appropriate to send out another message to remind people this is viable and it's still out there and refresh their memories. Happy to do that.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Very good.
Board, thank you.
Cool. We'll move on to agenda item number 10, which is the state engineer's report with Mr. Greg Byers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. What I would kind of like to revert back to the past item. ADOT has a very robust planning program. We have some really good individuals that work in our planning group. Any entity that wants to work on a SMART fund application, we are more than willing to help them out. So the application itself is fairly simple, but we can certainly help them and guide them in trying to put together any kind of application to help that out. So in that blast that Clem was just talking about, we need to make sure that that invitation goes out as well.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, item 10, this is the state engineer's report. We currently have 100 projects under construction worth $2.2 billion. 4 projects were finalized in June worth $2.2 million. Fiscal year to date, we have 70 projects finalized. That 100 projects that we currently have out worth the $2.2 billion is a substantial amount of work. So with that, I'm going to stand up here and give my little piece here. Safety is paramount on our roadways. We have a lot of construction going on across the state. Anybody that came up 60 saw some of that. But that isn't just on 60, it is on numerous roadways across the state. So I've got a chance here to push safety, and I'm going to, because that truly is paramount for ADOT. We have employees out on those roadways. The contractors have employees out on those roadways. The public that is traveling on those roadways has to take and work through our work zones. So with that, we really need to push out that in those work zones, there's direction given for slower speeds, what to do if there's detours, if we have pilot lanes working. It is paramount that everybody just slow down, pay attention, and read the directions that are necessary on the signage that we put out for all of our work zones. It is huge. And right now, it is everywhere. So it's a big deal right now. The other thing I'd like to say is, with the number of projects that we have, the construction industry within the state of Arizona right now is extremely busy. They are maxed out. And they're doing everything they can to expedite work, but there's a lot going on. So patience is paramount. So just wanted to push that out. So thank you very much. That's all I have for item 10.
Thank you. And we'll move on to agenda item number 11.
Chairman Knight.
Yes, Richard.
I've got a question for Greg.
Okay, continue.
Okay, Greg, speaking of patience, back in May, that I believe it was the 331 exit on 191 South was damaged by that semi-fire. And both the southbound 191 and westbound westbound off of 191 has been affected and are detoured on county roads. I keep on looking for the contract for that emergency repair. Can you tell me where we're at with that?
So, Mr. Chairman, board member Cyril, you got about another 6 weeks before you're actually going to see this happen, but you will not see an advertisement. This is going to go through a different procurement for us to get this done. We've got design coming up. We've got the design is almost completed. We've got contractors that are looking at this to get it done. One thing for you that you had brought up before was a route coming around for access, a ramp access on coming off of I-10 and 191. That is going to be part of the project that is currently being designed, but it will not be, it'll be temporary for a detour during construction of the bridge, but it will remain in place, but we're going to gate it off. And the whole purpose of that is when we have large loads coming through, instead of having to detour them around, there will now be a means to be able to come around the bridge and make that detour without having to get off of I-10. So that is going to be part of the project.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. Right now, the detour is putting quite a bit of traffic on county roads that have weight limits on it, and the semi-traffic is, Cochise County's taking the brunt of this right now. So glad to see it's moving forward.
No problem. As far as item number 11, new construction contracts, we had several contracts going out. Currently, we're at for end of year. We came out at 2% over our total budgeted amounts. Our total amount for FY23 came out to be $707,839,343.90. Now, this is just construction costs. There's a lot more in project development that goes with this, which is well over $1 billion. So extreme amount that we actually put out the door this past year. So with that though, one thing to look at is that we were only 2% over in our total costs of that entire program. So we were fairly accurate within all of our estimating. We were off, it seems like a big number, but for a program the size that we have, it's not too bad. We're off $14,018,073.23 for the year. So
2%.
a lot of work.
That's not bad.
Nope, within 2% is pretty good. So the first project that we have, item 11A. Thank you. Next slide. This is item 11A. This is a pavement rehab project. This is on 10B Arizona Avenue, Rex Allen Drive. The low bid was $3,892,698. State's estimate was $3,200,387, a difference of $692,311 or 21.6%. One of the biggest changes that we had in this was there's a longer haul that's going to be necessary for asphalt materials. And with that, there's slower production rates that were than what were estimated by the state. But after analysis of the low bid, it was determined that the bid is responsive and responsible, and we recommend award to Granite Construction Company.
Very well. Are there any questions from anyone on the board?
Jared, I'd like to make the motion
Any
to
questions
approve.
from you, Mr. Searle?
No, I'd like to make the motion to approve.
It is in your district. I have a motion from Board Member Searle to approve the award of item 11A to Granite Construction Company. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Member Maxwell. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? To poll more Member Searle.
Mr. Searle, your vote, please.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item we have is 11B. This is a rest area rehabilitation project. This is on I-17, McGuireville Rest Area. The low bid was $6,052,750. State's estimate was $3,343,686, a difference of $2,709,064 or 81% over the state's estimate. We had some substantially higher costs than what we had anticipated on the sewer system, the restroom renovations, lift station, and then mobilization costs itself. ADOT does really good on roadways. Sometimes we don't do so good on other facilities. With the low bid being significantly higher than the state's estimate, our ADOT facilities group took and reevaluated the project and decided to rescope the project. The rescoped project will be completed through a different procurement process than this. We're having people do this that are much better at it. With that, we recommend rejection of all bids.
Any questions from the board?
What's the, what are you anticipating the cost of the rescope project going to be?
At this point, we're not sure. Facilities is going back and taking a look at it.
So are you going to reduce some of the improvements? I mean, I'm going to assume because you're rescoping it, you had this vision and now it's going to be a little bit less. Is that how you're going to get back within the cost? I guess just what I'm trying to get at is you're very surprised by the rehabilitation cost. That's understandable. Things, you know, it's a different world we're playing in right now. But did you normally that sometimes we'll hear that you say that you, after review, they think they're reasonable. So is this an issue of it's just too much to pay and just going to rescope the requirements down, or was it you think you can get somebody that's going to do it for less?
It was too much, and one of the big things is we try to not only take care of the issues that we had, but look out into the future. So we did more of an ultimate kind of design than what's necessary. There's some that have to be done, particularly the water system, the wastewater system have to be improved. But we can kind of scale those back a little bit to make it much more palatable for funding wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any of it that could be done in-house?
There's some that can, but it would be probably much more efficient and effective for a contract.
It's just a question. Any other questions? In that case, that's in my district. I will move to reject all bids as members for future agenda items.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, before getting those suggestions, as Mr. Thompson had asked, would you be willing to open up call to the audience and to see if Ms. Boudreau or Mr. Key Allen Begay is still on and able to make their comments?
Absolutely. We can do that. I'm glad you reminded me because I did forget. We're running on to close to noon now, so I kind of forgot about it. I do have one quick question before we do that came to mind when I've read that the new Sunset Point rest area is open, and that's good news. It looks like it's, from the pictures, it looks like it's great. They're closing the one that it was some butte that they were using prior.
The temporary one that was set up at Badger Springs TI, which is south of there, that is closed, and we're going to rehabilitate that site and put it back. We're going to move out all the temporary.
Okay. Because I was going to suggest we could at least use that one for our trucking, for our trucks to stop at.
Sure, understand. Exactly. We can give a update on the truck parking plan and the issue moving forward because we are in the process of developing that. So we'll put that on the next agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, we went through BLM to get this as a special use for the temporary rest area. So they were very gracious to be able to allow us. They're the underlying landowner. It is within ADOT right of way, but they are the underlying landowner. So consequently, for us to utilize it for anything other than this special use, we would have to go back to BLM to see if we could do anything.
Just a thought, because I know we're looking for more places for our truckers to park their rigs. So I was just thinking maybe we could use that for that.
Thank you. At this point, since the chairman did open up call to the audience, I would ask if Ms. Boudreau, are you there? Please raise your hand.
Go ahead and hit *6 to unmute your line.
Ms. Boudreau, if you're talking, we are not hearing you.
Ms. Boudreau, now go ahead and hit *6. It does not look like her line is being unmuted.
Thank you, Randy. Then I'll go on. The other gentleman, Mr. Key Allen Begay Jr., Mr. Begay, are you there? Please raise your hand.
I do not see any hands.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It does not look as if we're able to continue with those requests.
That being said, and having covered all of the agenda items on this agenda, this meeting's adjourned.
Oh, Mr. Chairman and Jennifer, I'll lead your